A squared plus B squared equals C squared, where C is the length of the hypotenuse. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, where A and B are the length of the other sides.
Hello and welcome to the Kearney Math Show. Thank you all for tuning in today. On today's episode of the Kearney Math Show, we are going to be featuring mini lesson 5 on the Pythagorean theorem. But before we get started, if you'll take just a moment to write your entry number 6 at the top and read the learning goal. So by the end of today, guys, I want you to be able to take and explain to someone else how they can find the missing sides in a right triangle, okay? So we're going to learn how to do that using the Pythagorean theorem, okay? So the Pythagorean theorem sounds really kind of fancy and difficult, but it's actually a pretty cool theorem. So basically what we're going to do today is we're going to take what you guys learned in the last unit about triangles, and we're also going to combine it with what we've learned in this unit about solving equations with square roots, okay? So before we get started, let's just talk about some important pieces that make up a right triangle. So we all know that a right triangle has one angle with a measure 90 degrees. That's what makes it a right triangle, because it has that right angle, okay? Now, when you have a right triangle, you have some really important pieces in it, okay? I'm going to draw me another one over to the side, okay? First of all, it has to have that right angle, okay? The other important pieces that make up a right triangle are the legs, okay? The legs are the sides that are adjacent to the right angle. Okay, it's those two sides that are adjacent. And a lot of times we give them the title A and B. That's going to be important later. Okay, so right beside of that right angle, you've got the two legs. And across or opposite from the right angle, you have something called the hypotenuse. Okay, the hypotenuse is the side that's opposite from the right angle. It is not adjacent to the right angle. And we give that the name C. Okay? So in a right triangle, you've got the right angle, you've got the two legs that are adjacent to that right angle, and then you've got the hypotenuse, and that's the one that is opposite from the right angle. Okay? So let's just kind of go into a little bit more depth about what's really cool about a right triangle, okay? In any right triangle, whether it's a small right triangle or a big right triangle or a medium-sized, any right triangle, as long as it has a right angle, the sum, what does sum tell you to do? Add. So the sum of the squares of the two legs, so if we take the two legs and we square them, and find the sum, is actually equal to the square of the hypotenuse. Okay, if we squared the hypotenuse, and I'm going to explain that into a little bit more detail. So in a right triangle, the legs are given the variables A and B. Like I said up top, we've got the two legs are A and B. Okay, that's important to the Pythagorean theorem. You want to know the two legs are A and B. And the hypotenuse is given the variable C. So we've got the leg is A, the other leg is B. That hypotenuse that's opposite or across from the right triangle or right angle, that is C. Okay? The hypotenuse, what's also cool is the hypotenuse is always the longest side of a right triangle, and it is across from the right angle, which we already said. Okay? So that longest side, that diagonal, that is the hypotenuse. And so that brings us to the Pythagorean theorem. What's really cool about right triangles. So basically what I said up here, I'm going to apply to you down here. Okay? So we've got a right triangle. We've got a right angle. We've got this leg A, this leg B, and we've got this leg C. Okay? So this is a leg, another leg, and the hypotenuse. Okay? The Pythagorean theorem tells us that if I take and square the legs, so A squared, I square A, and I add it to B squared, then that actually equals the length of the square of the hypotenuse. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared, okay? So that's super, super mega important. You need to file that in your memory from now until forever. So anytime you have a right triangle, you can take the two legs and square them, add them up, and that's going to give you the hypotenuse squared, okay? So let's actually see this in action. So if you'll look over on the right side, we'll try one together, okay? So, first of all, do you see a right triangle? Let's look at number one. Okay, yes, it's a right triangle. It's got that right angle, okay? So I'm going to label my sides. I have A and I have B, and that one's already labeled C, okay? And so using the Pythagorean theorem, if we know two sides of a right triangle, we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the third side, okay? All we have to do is substitute our values in to our Pythagorean theorem and solve for the missing side length, okay? So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to write give myself some room. So on number one, we've got A, we've got B, and we've got C. I'm going to remind myself that the Pythagorean theorem tells me that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So if I take the length of A, which is 16, and I square it, so 16 squared, plus I take the length of B, which they've given me, and I square it, so 12 squared, that should give me the hypotenuse squared. Okay, so all I now need to do is simplify and solve my equation for C. Do you see how we're going to be solving equations with squares and square roots? Like what we've been doing in class? So now I'm going to do 16 squared, which is, if you do 16 times 16, is 256, plus 12 squared, which is 144. That should give me C squared. Okay, now if we simplify, 256 plus 144, I get 400 equals C squared. So that C has, if we squared C, that should give me 400. So just like we talked about when we're solving an equation, we're trying to get C by itself. And right now, I don't know what C is. I know what C squared is. So I want to solve for C. So what is the inverse operation of squaring C? I can take the square root. So I can take the square root of C, which means I also have to take the square root of 400. Okay, the square root of C squared is C. That cancels out. And then the square root of 400 is 20. So that tells me that this length here, C, equals 20. Okay, and how could you check that? How could you check to see if you were right? We could plug in that 20, and so we could say what's 16 squared, which is 256, plus 12 squared, which is 144, and that should give me 20 times 20, which is 400. Okay? I'm going to do one more with you. Okay, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do number 3. Now, again, we have a right triangle and we have a side length that is missing. Okay, but in this one, we actually do, are we missing a leg or are we missing the hypotenuse? We're missing a leg. So first of all, let's label. We've got A, B, and C. Okay, and I need to write my formula out. My Pythagorean theorem tells me that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Okay, so I'm going to plug in all the pieces that I know. Do I know what A is? No, so I just know it's X. I'm going to put X squared plus, do I know B? Yes, that's 15. So I'm going to do 15 squared equals C squared, which is 21 squared. Now I can simplify. So I can't do anything with X squared yet. So I've got plus 15 squared, which is 225, equals 21 squared, which is 441. And now do you see it's just a simple equation we need to solve? Yeah, so we can draw our line and solve. Okay, so how would I get rid of that 225? I'm going to subtract 225, and I end up with X squared equals 216. And so now I need to figure out what X is. And right now I only know what is X squared is 216. So how could I solve for X? What's the opposite of squaring something? I can take the square root. So I can take the square root of both sides, and I'm left with X equals, and the square root of 216. Oh, 216 is not a perfect square, is it? So I can estimate, and I know that that is between 14 and 15. It's a little closer to 15, so it's 14.7. So that tells me that this length over here, X equals 14.7. Okay? So just to recap, guys, today we talked about the Pythagorean theorem. And the Pythagorean theorem tells me that when you're given a right triangle, the two legs squared and added together will give you the hypotenuse squared. And our formula that we walked away with is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Okay? So say that 225 times fast. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And keep saying it. Okay? And you can try a practice problem, and I will be happy to answer any questions you have when you come to my station. Okay. Good luck, guys. Make me proud. Peace out, Rainbow Trout. Love you, mean it. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A squared